You think if Donald Trump says, I want this guy back in the United States, you think the El Salvadorian president's going to say no?
Maybe.
If anyone believes that, I got some oceanfront property in Kansas for you to sell.
Fox News is less of a news network and more of a zoo of the finest and most cracked out conservatives that Rupert Murdoch could get his creepy little fingers on.
Hey, Rupert, you quit your cussing.
Sorry, Mrs. Murdoch.
I love it when you call me that.
I know what else you love, you dirty cow.
But every once in a while, very, very rarely, they make a mistake and let somebody on the air who has some actual sense. And even rarer still, that person will be a Republican. I'm talking rarer than Trump getting his tiny hands on Melania, rarer than Matt Gaetz dating somebody over the age of 16.
What's the youngest schoolgirl you've ever been with? And have you ridden on the Lolita Express?
This time it was GOP ex-lawmaker Trey Gowdy who had to be the one to throw the cold water on the constitutional crisis parade they were having over on Fox News. Check this out.
In America, Trey, it's always great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today. So what do you think the White House should do in this situation?
I mean, I think what they ought to do is probably follow the judge's order and the Supreme Court decision, which used the word facilitate. Also in that opinion, Martha, were the words accidental, mistake, and illegal. I mean, those are not three good words you want in a Supreme Court decision. So, look, I don't want the guy in the United States. Although I will say this. If the press secretary's facts are right, it should be a pretty easy conviction. And do I have more confidence in U.S. prisons or El Salvadorian prisons? U.S. prisons. I don't know if you remember Pablo Escobar or not in Colombia, but that was more like the sanctuary at Kiowa or the Ritz-Carlton. That's not a real prison. So I have more confidence in U.S. prosecutors. I have more confidence in the U.S. prison system. If the president doesn't agree with that, and he may not, then bring him back and then remove him to another country, appeal the removal order. But what we can't have is any executive disobeying or not following a judge's decision, even if you disagree with it.
Yeah.
Appeal it, or else you're going to get fined. I bet this judge is going to start fining the department on a daily basis if he's not brought back here.
I mean, it's nice to hear that there's at least one Republican who still has his head screwed onto his shoulders. The Republicans have been trying to get away with pretending like there's nothing they can do to bring back Abrego Garcia, as if the second he left U.S. custody and stepped foot in El Salvador, his identity was blurred out like Black Mirror. But Trey Gowdy had an excellent answer for that as well. Check this out.
Well, let me ask you this. The language to effectuate and facilitate and effectuate his return was the court language on this. So, but we heard Bukele say yesterday that, you know, he wasn't going to return him. So if the United States government, if the White House says, we've asked the president of El Salvador, he's an El Salvadorian resident, he's a citizen of El Salvador. If he says, I'm not going to return him to you, would that satisfy the court?
I doubt it, Martha.
If we ask to have him brought back and his own country won't send him back, isn't that enough?
You think if Donald Trump says, I want this guy back in the United States, you think the El Salvadorian president's going to say no?
Maybe.
If anyone believes that, I got some oceanfront property in Kansas for you to sell.
Maybe if he thinks it will help out President Trump. They seem like they get along pretty well. So we'll see. Trey, thank you very much. Good to have you here. It's a big drama, obviously, and there's so many people that have been deported, but this one's getting a ton of attention.
The situation is getting so bad that the senator from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, is saying that he is going to go down to El Salvador himself to get a proof of life if the Trump administration doesn't comply with the Supreme Court. Check out this clip.
Van Hollen also said he's prepared to go to El Salvador himself if Abrego Garcia is not returned very soon, writing to the Salvadoran ambassador to the United States. This, in part, I have met with Mr. Abrego Garcia's wife, mother, and brother, and as you can imagine, they are extremely worried about his health, safety, and continued illegal confinement, as am I. And joining us now is Senator Van Hollen. Senator, thank you for your time. You requested this meeting with President Bukele while he's in D.C. Is the meeting set? Have you heard back?
Kate, it's good to be with you. I did request it. I've not heard back from the president of El Salvador. And as I said in that letter, if I don't hear from him and Abrego Garcia is not quickly returned, I do intend to go to El Salvador this week to show solidarity with his family. As you indicated, the Trump administration itself has admitted that he was abducted and sent to this prison in error, and he should get his due process.
They show no intent of doing anything to bring him back anytime soon, that is for sure. If by midweek, I mean, that could be tomorrow, nothing happens, you go to El Salvador, do you have a hope of leaving with him when you come back, or what can you accomplish there?
Kate, I hope to meet with officials of the government of El Salvador. I don't know if the president is going to be in country at that time. I also hope to visit this notorious prison to see Abrego Garcia, to let him know that his family and friends are very worried about him, as am I. I think that the situation for both the Trump administration and the president of El Salvador is unsustainable. Because the Supreme Court, as you reported, by 9-0, has said the Trump administration has to facilitate his return. And you have the president of El Salvador saying, well, I don't have the power to release him. Both things are untrue. The president could, of course, facilitate his return. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador money for this prison. And of course, the president of El Salvador could release him. So at some point, I think this becomes unsustainable. People are going to keep calling for his release because the Trump administration itself has admitted he was wrongfully whisked out of the country, and we have a 9-0 decision from the Supreme Court.
This is very important, obviously, to you, as he and his family are constituents of yours. But I heard this somewhat debated last night. And what do you say to someone, I'm picking a random place, Idaho? Why should we, the collective we, care about this one case?
Well, we should care about this case because of due process. Every American citizen is due their due process, and people who are in the United States under legal protective status, like Abrego Garcia was, are entitled to due process. So if the president gets to shred the Constitution and ignore the Supreme Court in this case, it is a very short path to the president ignoring court orders in other cases. So every American should care about this.
This case is shaping up to be a turning point for a lot of politicians, the final bit of erosion on our system of checks and balances that might finally cause the whole thing to collapse. This is about more than just one man. It's a benchmark moment in American history that may be the point, looking back, where we can definitively say that the system officially stopped functioning. If we keep fighting, like Senator Van Hollen, we may make sure that that just isn't the case. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.